Okay, I'm going to ask the team of Luann and Randy to turn their videos on. Good morning, everybody. All right, we're going to get started. Everybody should have their coffee and tea, and I'll give everybody a few more minutes because it is exactly the top of the hour. And while we're waiting for them, we have a poem that the team found that we thought was particularly appropriate. So along with me, everybody, I'm going to teach you in a room. I will teach you now on Zoom. I will teach you in your house. I will teach you with a mouse. I will teach you here and there. I will teach you because I care. So just do your very best and do not worry about the rest. So thank you for joining us. And as you can see, we would love to give an attribution to this slide. So if somebody in the audience that has joined us knows who did this, send it over in the chat or the Q&A because we would love to give credit where credit is due. So let's get started. So thank you again and a warm welcome to everybody joining us and taking the time out of your day to sit with us for this hour as we go through how to use touch math in a distance learning situation. Joining us for the next hour are going to be about 300 to 500 educators, and you're representing teachers, parents, parapros, administrators, the entire gamut. I know that in looking at the data, there's about 45 states that are represented, as well as Canada, Spain, and the UK. Also looking at the data, I saw that you're teaching IEPs in both special ed classrooms and in the mainstream classrooms. You're doing RTI, and I'm going to throw out some TLAs here, three-letter acronyms. We've got teachers coming from ASD, multiple disabilities, LD, LID, VI. Let me see, I've made a list of them. ELL and RTI, so you name it. And most of you are using touch math as a supplemental curriculum, but in many cases also as your core curriculum. So we know that the time is limited, and you're going to see me glancing at my my timer as I'm over here so that I can make sure we stay on time. We've only got an hour with you, and we can't cover everything. But we did want to go today and spend some time, even if it's not in depth, on some of the more time-sensitive topics that you all have been bringing up to us. And those are things around actual distance learning strategies that we've found effective, things that pertain to social emotional learning, some of the instructional strategies that are most effective when you're working in a virtual world, how to involve parents. So, and we would love to go deeply into the pedagogy and the math, but that's just not doable. So we've got some separate trainings that are coming up for that. So in focusing on this, we wanted to say that some of the things that we're going to be covering are pertinent not just to mathematics, but also to anything that has to do with language arts, social studies, science, and I would have to say, since good instruction is good instruction, also pertains to every curriculum that you're using. So we're hoping that this hour will be helpful. So some quick introductions. I am Sandra Elliott. I'm the Chief Academic Officer here at Touch Math. I'm a former special ed teacher, low incidence. I'm a former SPED principal. I've been in the central office. I have worked in districts and systems all over the US. I've also been lucky enough to be part of the team that launched Eureka Math when it was engaged in New York. So I got to work with a lot of districts, and some of you that have logged on, I actually think I recognize some names. But I've also been fortunate enough to work with some of the best ed tech companies around, namely Amplify, Bright Bites, you name it, and a number of education foundations in Texas and across the country. But at this time, I have come home. I am sitting at Touch Math, and I'm working with a phenomenal team. And if you'll notice on your screen, hopefully everybody is seeing what they need to. Randy LaRusso, she has 41 years of serving students, educators, and parents in the area of special ed. She has extensive experience teaching at the local, state, and national level, and she's actually served on 2 national projects from the U.S. Department of Education, and one that was being a director of one of the Florida statewide discretionary projects. She's now an educational consultant and part of the Touch Math team. Luann Bumgardner is also on the team. She began her career as a middle school math teacher. She's mentored and coached incoming teachers, any number of them. She's held trainings for her colleagues, and I apologize for my dog. The National Guard has decided to do their practice runs today. So she has spent 10+ years working with teachers and also at Promethean, where she has helped a lot of educators work with the US and 3 other countries, and she has her own consulting company. So over the course of the next 50 minutes, we are going to try and accomplish these objectives. How to shift to distance or online teaching using touch math, helping parents and students use manipulatives at home, validating skills. What are the different ways when we're 30 miles away from students that we can actually confirm that they do know something? And then working through this high tech, low tech, no tech, and the lack of resources that parents may have, or you may have if you only had 20 minutes to get in and out of your classroom. And still leave at the end of this enough time for a substantial Q&A. And I want you to remember one reminder before we get going. Touch Math is a multimodal program for mathematics. There is a strong emphasis on the use of manipulatives and also on, we're trying to work children through this concrete, representational, abstract continuum to build mathematical models in their head so that they do use the abstract version. So you'll see us talk a lot about see it, say it, hear it, touch it, gradual release, and things like that. So to move us forward, when you registered, we asked you if you had any questions for us, and many of you were kind enough to definitely send us in some. So we have been through those. We have built them into a large part of what our presentation is. So if you listen carefully, you will probably hear your question answered. If not, we should have enough time at the end of the session in order to go through them. So I am going to toss the ball to you, Luann, and we will get started.
Well, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. So we know many of you are already familiar with the features of Zoom, but I did want to take a minute and explain some of the features of Zoom. Can you turn the page for me? And, and as well as some of the other features. So if at any time you would like to ask a question, see down here on the bottom of the screen, you'll see the chat and the Q&A bar. Click on that Q&A if you ever have any questions and type it in for us. And we're going to do our best to answer all your questions by the end of the hour. The chat there, if you have any technical issues or anything like that going on, please use the chat to communicate with us. If you were to get a chat message, it will highlight orange, so you'll see that highlight orange should a chat come in. So we're going to actually start with a poll here today, and once we do launch the poll, you're going to see the polls window open. You see that little image on your screen there, just to kind of give you an idea of what it looks like. Just read through the questions, hit the radio button to answer your questions, and when you're finished, click on that submit button, and we will get your answers. If anyone did join our session, a little sidebar here, if anyone did join our session via the web browser, your web browser and not the desktop client for Zoom, it's possible you may not be seeing the polls. Just know that's something that's just how they work. And also something to keep in mind should you ever use a Zoom and its polling features with your students. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start the poll, and it's time for us to get to know a little bit more about you. All right, so if you could answer these 3 questions and just tell us a little bit so we can get to know a little bit more about you. Awesome. So make sure you hit submit too once you're finished. And I'm seeing answers come in here already. It's really interesting seeing the bars move there. The majority of you, it looks like you are using touch math in your distance learning environment, but you might need a little bit of help, which is great. We're hopefully going to get you there. Hopefully by the end of this session, we'll be able to answer any questions you have and even try to just make you feel a little more comfortable using touch math in a distance learning environment, whether you have technology or not. Comfort level depends on the day. I understand that. That's many of us for a lot of things. And the last question about did you use it before COVID-19? A large majority of you said yes, you did use it prior to COVID-19. So that's good for us to know. Or even if you had it and you didn't use it. So that just gives us some really good information to use when we're talking with everyone today. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And just if you want to see, I did share the results. If anyone wants to look at those real quick, you can kind of see where everyone is at here today. All right, stop sharing that. All right, I'm going to share my screen here in one moment, sorry. All right, let me share my screen. There we go. A lot of screens open. You got to make sure you pick the right one. So hopefully everyone is seeing my distance learning strategies slide. So there are a lot of different strategies out there, and we know that. And whether you're teaching, if you have technology, if you don't have technology, you know, if you're using video conferencing, if you're talking to your students over the phone or email, text, whatever it might be, these are our top 5 distance learning strategies when using touch math. And as you read through those, I'm not going to read them to you. You're going to see that they're the same strategies that you're used to using, and they're really not any different than the ones you use every day in your classroom. Yes, distance learning is a challenge. It's different. It's just something we're not used to. The biggest thing I want everyone to take away from a part of this is just be patient, not only with the students, but with yourself. We all make mistakes. You're going to make mistakes while you're doing this, and that is absolutely fine and great. It's a learning experience. You know, when we make mistakes, it's a learning experience. So we just want to use that to try to figure out how we can do it better the next time. It's really important for your students to know that you got this, you know, whether it's new to you or not, and whether you feel comfortable, you know, just be that same energized, personable teacher that your students are used to seeing every day. And keep them engaged. You know, you want to make sure your students are staying engaged in your lessons. And it's, how do you do that, you know, in a distance learning environment? So some things that you could do, if you are using video conferencing, you could use polls like we just did for feedback. You could use a chat, breakout rooms, depending on the platform you're using. You could use breakout rooms for some collaboration. You could have students hold up their work. So I don't have anything here, but you know, they could hold up their work and to show it to you through the video service, or take a picture of it and email or text it to you, or put it in an envelope and send it in the mail. Just some different ways that you can kind of still keep things, ways you can stay connected with your students and you know, get their feedback on the work that they're doing. If you don't have any technology available, many of you probably took pictures of your students in your classroom before all this happened, before the COVID-19. Maybe print out some of those pictures and send them to your students with a little note letting them know that, you know, how much you miss them. You could encourage some type of pen pal program where students send notes or cards or drawings to each other, just to try to keep them connected. Oh, and again, you'd use that video conferencing with your students so they can feel like they're still part of your classroom. Sorry, I always have to take a little drink of water. And I know a lot of you do have younger students or students with severe disabilities, but all this can be done with the parents. Just get the parents involved, have them help their student using the technology or sending a letter, anything that you might be using. And that's just going to help build those relationships with you, your student, and the parent. And you just want to make sure the communication is staying open, and keep those lines of communication open so everyone can help build this child's learning experience and make it positive for everybody. So one good resource that we do have that you can share with parents and caregivers, we do have 2 free apps that are available to download. The first one is Touch Math Counting. It is available for iOS and for Android devices, and it is a fun and engaging way for students to practice their counting in their Touch Math touch points. And the second one is Touch Math Jungle. It is available for iPad. turn the page for me? Sorry about that. And here students are going to work through touching and counting patterns. They can count to 20, they do number sequencing to 20, beginning addition, and other math concepts. They do it through skill practice, and we have a fun and engaging adventure themed story for the students to move through. And it's just a way to make learning fun for them. As a teacher, you can find resources on our Green Edition and our Touch Math website. So I'm actually going to take control here and show you some things online.
I'm going to stop sharing for you, Lan, so that you can grab it.
Thank you. And we'll go here. All right, I'm going to move everyone over here. All right, there we go. All right, do you see, oops, sorry about this. I got the wrong thing open. I'm going to share again, sorry about that. I got too many things open. All right, here we go. So you should see, now on my screen, you should see the Touch Math website. So hopefully everybody sees that. And here you can find up here in the top right-hand corner where it says Green Editions Login. I want to talk to you a few minutes about our Green Edition. So I'm going to click on this, and this is always a fast and easy way to get here to our Green Editions. So once I get to the Green Editions login page, before I log in, I want to point out this tutorial section. In here, you're going to find our quick start guide and FAQs. These are fantastic resources. I highly recommend everybody check these out, whether you're new to Green Editions or whether you've been using them or need a refresher. You may learn some things you haven't known, but didn't know before. So please check out those resources there. Below that, you'll see links to our videos. These are our video tutorials on how to use the Green Edition. Again, just a really great resource for you to check out. So I have my login information already in here, so I'm going to click sign in. And by the way, if you are not sure if you have access to the Green Edition, you can contact us and we'll let you know if you have access to the Green Edition, and we're going to provide contact information at the end of this webinar. So you will be able to find out from us if you're not sure if you have access to the Green Edition. So when I log in, the first thing that I'm going to see here are the active subscriptions. And here I can click on a grade level and I can see the different units in here. I've clicked on upper grades, and you can see our upper grades go from addition and subtraction all the way up through pre-algebra. Another option is using the access content, and I can choose my grade level. So I chose first grade, our standards-based, the unit, and then the module, and I can click go and it'll take me there and I can look at those things. Once I go here, I can access the activity sheets for students where I can print them or download them as a PDF so I can share them with parents and students. For time purposes, I'm not going in there right now. I'll let you check out the video tutorials, but I am going to scroll down here a little bit and show you the program resources. Here you're going to find other videos and documents that you're going to find really helpful when you're working in the Green Edition. Under Green Edition training, if I click on that drop down, all the resources that I just showed you in that tutorial section, you can find right here. So I just want to show you another place where you can find those. And if you're not sure, up here for your active subscriptions, if you're not sure how to activate subscriptions, go down here to this getting started video and it will show you how you can activate your subscription. So just check out that getting started video. All right, so I'm going to head back over to the Touch Math website. I can do it quickly up here in this top right hand corner. I'm just going to click Touch Math. And I'm going to go to our COVID-19 resources. So in that red ribbon up top, And I know a lot of you have been here. I know a lot of you are familiar with these resources. I just want to point out a few things here. We do have resources for educators, for our Green Edition users, and for parents and caregivers. So going back to the Green Edition users, continuing on that conversation, here you're going to find where you can download our desktop touch lines. And I already have them open. I just want to go over here just to show you what they look like. These are our touch lines, just so you can see. And oh, Zoom is in my way. Won't let me go back. All right. There we go. And you could also find links to our apps here. These can also be found on that for educators or for parent and caregivers pages. I just wanted to show you them that they're here as well. And then scrolling down, those video tutorials that I showed you are here as well. So just to kind of give you, again, another resource or another way to do these things. In addition to these resources, we have created a PowerPoint resource. I actually have it open here actually I'm going to open it in Google Slides. You could use either Google Slides or PowerPoint. It doesn't matter. They have the same functionality where you can copy and paste. So here is one, you could copy paste these numbers, the touch points, the pictures, the math operations here onto a blank slide. So you can model something for your students. So I'm going to just insert a blank slide here. And if I was to right click and hit copy and go to my blank slide, and I could right click and paste, you can also use your keystroke shortcuts if you're more comfortable with those. And I could just keep going until I build my problem. Again, for time purposes, I just only have an hour. I could do this all day with you, but I can't. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the examples that have started. So here is an example using the pictures and the touch points. And then another example with 8 minus 4. And I do have some tips and some instructions on these pages so that you can get a better idea of how to use things and how to use them in a stress-free way. We've recently included some money examples. So here's some money examples as well. Again, I added a blank slide in here and just a couple examples of how you could possibly use them. And for time, we have just added some time examples too, where you can move these over here and do some examples with your students, including a digital clock. So again, just wanted to show you some of these resources. This PowerPoint here is going to be included in the as a link in the recording of this webinar, so you will have easy access to it once we finish up and the webinar recording is sent to you. So I'm going to kick it on over to Randy, and she is going to show you some really cool things that she has done from her home.
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to be here today. My part of the presentation really is about how do we teach the same thing over and over and over again and still keep kids engaged. How do we do that within multiple examples where we're seeing it, saying it, hearing it, touching it. And so that's what I'm going to show you today. Now, one of the things when you're on distance learning and you're modeling, you sometimes are able to make eye contact. Other times you're going to be working with your things. So you want to make sure that you're speaking loud enough where your voice is really short. Microphone is clear. So I'm going to show you what I found around my house as I was looking at various ways to use desk supplies, art supplies, household items, touch math manipulatives, of course, the Green Edition, free workbooks that are available to you. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. One of the things that I dug up at my house was paint sticks. And the reason that I love these so much is because watch how bright these are, right? So I can use these when I don't let them dry out overnight, to be able to write equations that my students can see on the video. So here's sort of my next choice, are oil-based crayons. And again, I'm going to darken that up a little bit here. You see how much brighter that is? Take a look at it when it's just a crayon. And you can see there's a considerable difference there. So I wanted to show you that and talk about what you can do there. One of the things is the free downloadable workbooks. And I love these. One of the pieces on here that I wanted to share with you were the use of bingo markers. So that's what I found in my drawer somewhere. And now I can count with my students. Again, I think my things are drying out. I need to get new ones. But that's one of the issues, right? I found lots of things around my house that were old. So you definitely want to grab a hold of those free workbooks online. One of the things that I love are just a plain old chalkboard. So if you have a chalkboard at home, that's great. How about magnetic numbers? Now, when I first pulled out my magnetic numbers, I realized that I did not have a magnetic board. And I woke up in the middle of the night a couple of nights ago and I realized that I have a cookie sheet. So I can use my 3D touch math numbers at home, even if I don't have a board that's a magnet. I also have my foam touch numerals. Now I love these. So I had to put them together in a way that I could show them. So what I did is I took my numbers and I took, let's see if you can see that little dot there. That's just a straight pin with a red head on it. And that way I can show that as one touch math point. But what if I need to show the double? So on this one, you'll be able to see I took a different color. In this example, I have a white pin and then my foam dot, and I have my numbers. Now I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you can see, that's my board. I love these. You could make these at home, but they're really pretty difficult. So now I'm going to turn my easel around, and I was lucky enough to have this easel sitting around the house. So I want to talk about some fine motor. Lots of us have IEPs or students that just need fine motor work. And so I want to make sure that I'm tying in my fine motor with my math. So I have this here, and I'm going to use a marker, a good old-fashioned Crayola marker, and I'm going to trace my 5 for my fine motor. Now, one of the things we can also do in that fine motor is to use Play-Doh. So I can actually work on that fine motor piece with my Play-Doh, make my little balls here, and I'm going to use those to model and create the touch points for the students. They also hopefully will have some Play-Doh at home. If not, maybe you could help your parents see how to use flour and water to create Play-Doh for your students if they do not have it. Right now, in the course of coronavirus, I'm thinking that it may be a little harder to find flour than it is to find Play-Doh. So the next thing I want to show you is these great downloadable activity. And what these are touch math cubes. I started with a document. These are the 4s. And you can have your students color them, cut them out, and put them together. Once they have a set, you can do adding, you can do subtracting, multiplying, dividing, just all with our touch math, another great fun manipulative for our kids. The next thing that I want to show you is I decided that I just needed to open a book, a couple of manuals here, and just let it fall wherever page opened and figure out how I would teach that page that day. So this is a pre-K activity, if you can see that there, although many of our students who are behind need to continue to do these kinds of things. And over here, I have just replicated that. But this time I'm going to replicate it, and I'm going to do it at my activity with some fun little Post-it notes. And so in this activity, the students might be connecting the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the 5, or maybe they're going to move those to the correct place to have the touch points. Now you're going to see a lot of the things that we do all come back to those touch points at those early years, and even a little later. This piece over here, my next one that I want to share with you, is about skip counting. And I have lost my, okay. The skip counting process I have looks like this. How many of you are comfortable with that skip counting? Right? We do that all the time with our kids. We start at that very young level and then we keep going as we move up. But what if I was to tell you that you could use skip counting for multiplication? So I'm going to add my touch points. Okay, and I spread them out a little bit so that I could mark them correctly. And now I'm going to say 2 times 6 equals 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. My answer, 6 times 2 equals 12. So you see how easy that is when you're skip counting with your kids. I'm going to do one more example of skip counting for multiplication. This is my 3 times 7. Now I always like to use the larger number when I'm doing this, so I'm going to put my dots there. I'm going to grab a bigger one. I'm going to help my students remember where those touch points go. And then I'm going to go with them as I do this 3 times 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. So I am skip counting by 3s in order to do that. So that's your little higher level math there. Here, I did some touch points with some old loose leaf notebook ring holders. When was the last time you saw those buried in your drawer? And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we've got that. I took my touch math posters, and lots of these things are going to be, you're going to get links at the end of this where they are for free to download. But I took some of my big posters and I cut them down. And one of the reasons I really like this is because it looks just like my 3D numerals. So I love these. Your Number lines are important to have. Again, you can download these number lines for your students. They can do it at home, or you can send it to them. We're going to have some students that have the ability to download and have internet, and other students that we may have to actually put some of these things in the mail to them and do it over the phone and walk them through these things over the phone. We know that depending on where you're teaching and where your students are living, it's going to be what is available to you to be able to help them to control what they're learning, to retain, and to move forward. I want to show you a little bit about what I did for on my upper grades also. Was I went into the geometry, and I took a couple of pages out of my geometry book, and I saw that one of the things that I got here is write and say the fraction that matches the picture. So if my student, I can show this and we can work through this together. The next page is going to be an activity that they do by themselves. And so when I go there, the direction become a little more complicated. And so I decided that I was going to put my directions on my computer and color code them. So these directions tell our students to color halves in purple and green, thirds in red, white, and blue, and fourths in black, brown, orange, and yellow. So if I can give them this prompt and keep it on the screen for them while they're working through their worksheet, it will reduce the cognitive load that we're asking of our students as they're working through this new process. We want to remember to do that. So those are some of the things that I got out of the upper grades book manual. When we talk about money, our money have the touch points. They look a little different. Our pennies have one dot, and our nickels have a star, 5, and for a dime, we have a double touch point. Now you're gonna find this in the kindergarten, grade 2, and 4th and 5th grade, but that's where they are in the scope and sequence. And Luann has prepared for you such a great tool to be able to create your own activities with just grabbing it and copying and pasting. So I'm real excited that she did that, because I think it's just going to be a great benefit, whether you're working out of that primary math or you're into that upper grades 4th and 5th. So thanks to you, Luann. So,
Randy, you ready for me to switch to SEL?
that works just beautifully. Thanks so much.
Okay, so Randy's going to be, now we're going to move to social emotional learning and pulling in parents. So I'm going to start sharing my screen and the PowerPoint again, everybody. There we go. Randy, you're on again.
So one of the things that we want to talk about is your social emotional learning. That of the students, of ourselves, and of our parents. So how do I embed that social emotional learning in? Social emotional learning is how children and adults learn to understand and manage emotions, set goals, show empathy for others, establish positive relationships, and make responsible decisions. Andres Silker said, it's not all about access to technology. It's about whether or not students have motivation, the capacity, the self-organizational skills to actually learn on their own. And so when we look at Tassel's research, which is the wheel that you see on the screen, we see that one of those priorities is self-awareness, identifying our feelings. How do students understand and imagine their emotions, their conflict, their fear, and certainly the stress that they're feeling now? And what does that look like? One of the things that we want to do is to give brain breaks. We want to use music and movement in our teaching, and we want to make sure that we can have some fun. So I have a couple of jokes. Why was 6 scared? Because 7, 8, 9. For the older kids, what do you call an empty parrot cage? A polygon. Silly, but still it's just a little emotion, a little brain break there. On our social awareness, we want to feel and show empathy for others. We want to have our kids to be able to talk to their parents and to us and their peers about that. But there's right way and wrong way to share your emotions. So now we have something called netiquette, which is going to be a new word in the dictionary, I'm absolutely sure, which is online etiquette. How do we do that in a way that's respectful? We want to build those relationship skills. We want to establish and maintain positive relationships and really understand the value of kindness. So have your students share how to solve a problem maybe, or do a video. How can they support each other? The next one is about responsible decision making. So allowing our kids to make their own decisions, maybe about how they're going to present what they're learning, which fits right into that whole universal design for learning. And here's an example here of multiplication strategies. 3 different possible ways that you can do that. They can also maybe do a video or teach an example just like I did with the skip counting. The last piece is self-management skills. And this is to be able to set and achieve positive goals. We know perseverance for online learning is going to be key. Part of that is that we need to reinforce our routines. We need our kids to know when and how we're going to deliver this. So having that routine and having them follow it is going to be really important here as you move forward. So you're probably wondering about where parents fit into this. And here are some of those family involvement and distance learning pieces. Teachers and parents need modeling SEL are really building relationships with the students. And ultimately, it's going to be how students relate to one another. So remember to make sure that you're dealing with that relationship. Keep it simple, but provide that structure. Try to do math first thing in the morning. You're not going to do a whole lot of it, depending on the age, how long you're going to spend time on math. But typically, we want to do those things that are difficult for us, have that deep cognitive load first thing in the morning when we're fresh, and that's typically math. And we know that parents' skill level, their ability to show up and be present, their time, they're working while they're home. So you want to consider all of that while you're providing resources for your students at home. One of the things I'd like you to look at, you're going to get a link to, is www.parenttoolkit.com, which is a resource I've recently found that I think is exceptional. So I know I went really fast today. There's things I didn't even get to show you, but Dr. Elliott's going to share information on other opportunities.
Yeah, the big thing was, as we knew in an hour, we got in a little bit of everything. And we would like to move to questions, but I have to ask you all 2 questions first, because we've gotten a lot of requests. Can we do, could Randy model add-ins? Could we spend a fair amount of time on money? Could we spend things on upper grades? So we try to give sort of a little bit to show, yes, this is in the curriculum and we can go through that. And we're trying to figure out how we could get into something that's much more in depth, work on pedagogy and work on actual math content. So to do that, I'm going to launch a poll one more time. And it's going to give us the information to know what we need to do as our next steps. And I know one of the big ones is pulling stuff together to talk to you all about summer school and extended school year, because that is now the top of mind as we're all wrapping up distance learning for the school year and moving into the next stage. But I need to find out from y'all if we could offer some in-depth trainings, which topics would be of most importance to you, which are of interest. And we were trying to figure out, based on your responses, how we could make this feasible, because for when we go into content and pedagogy, we really want to go into small groups so that we can pull people into workrooms virtually. We can do more polling, we can give people actual activities to do, and of course, it's, you know, it's teaching just like you're doing with the students. So one of the most important questions is number 2, because we're figuring to do those small groups, we can probably do it, but it would mean charging a small fee. So I wanted to test and see what the interest was in that. So there's my polls. Is there where's Luann, could you help me here? Because this is where your area of expertise is.
I'm not seeing the poll icon. I usually do. So it should be down at the bottom where you can start the poll.
Okay, let me
chat. If you might have to click on more.
Okay. See, we do have the same things.
Yeah.
See, well, this may, yeah, because it should have popped up there. And we're noticing we're having more internet issues and Zoom issues today than we did the last.
So where it says participants and chat, share screen, or you might need to click on more, but you should see the poll there. So I'm not sure. I was having some issues as well.
All right, I am just going to let that one slide because there's no way to do it. As we move into our Q&A, down at the bottom of your screens, you should see question and answers. So we want to open that up. We've been getting a lot from people and we appreciate that. So scroll through them, but start shooting us some, and we're going to, you know, Randy, Luann, and I are here. I've got some other people. We can answer some very specific ones. And I know that, you know, there's been a request. Randy, can you show us how to do add-ins? Could you do a quick model of that? So if you could pull something together while we're doing some other Q&A, that would be awesome. I will bring up the Q&A screen. I don't know that you all can see it when I bring it up, but you certainly can. So please open that question and answer. And we'll spend the next 10 minutes or so and stay with you guys to answer whatever you would like.
I know that there was a question about, there's been a lot of questions actually about how to share content with parents who maybe don't have printers. So one option, and I don't know if this is one that works. Sorry, someone's doing yard work out there, so I hope they're not too loud. But there's a couple things you could do. You could, if you have an iPhone and you click on the notes app and click on a new note, down here it has a camera, and when you do, you can scan it. It'll scan to a document and automatically go to a PDF, which is really nice. If you have an iPad or an iPhone, I'm sure there's something very similar for Android. I don't have an Android, but I'm sure there's something similar where you could use that. You could keep it as a photo. And again, if the parents have, you know, I'm sure they have, again, I'm talking about iPhone because that's what I have, but I took a picture of a worksheet, and even just using the markup option where the students could maybe answer in there and send that to you. So just some different options. And I know someone also had asked about the apps. The students have controlled apps, iPads at home. And yes, your IT department should be able to whitelist the apps so the students would have access to them. And I'm sure there's more people out there with that question, so I just wanted to address it.
Randy looks like she's pulling stuff together to do, aha. Randy will just have to unmute when she's ready. And Randy, at the same time, could you, as you're doing the add-ins, could you also demo touch counting?
And
all right, let's see. And would you?
I'm sure I know what you mean by add-ins. I'm talking about preschool addition and numbers here. So there are some great foam, I'm going to get this out of the way. I've got to be able to see. Can you see me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Touch Math makes these great pictures for that pre-K. I'm mixing in two things at once here because that's what I saw. So whether we do this with these great visuals or whether we do it with items that we have around the house, like beans or Cheerios, Fruit Loops, whatever you have around here. I'm going to make my numbers, and then I'm going to help my students see through those manipulatives, right? I need to be able to do that through those manipulatives, how we are going to count. So I'm going to write my numbers. I'm going to have manipulatives. Bear with me. And of course, you caught me off guard, so I don't have everything I need to be able to pull this together. But I'm going to show my students how my touch points are, right? 1, 2. So I'm going to have a.
And as Randy is doing this, I'd like everybody to note that she's working through the concrete representational abstract and she's saying it. She's having kids follow along. She's asking them to hear it. So that's that multimodal part. But on the concrete, you know, if she had had, you know, 2 socks plus 3 socks or 2 apples plus 3 apples, something that was concrete, she's moving the children along that continuum so that they start to equate, you know, 2 objects with 2 representations, which are the dots or the little pictures, and then moving them all the way to what we want all children to be able to do, which is the abstract, which is that weird squiggly that's called a 2 or a 3.
So we want to remember as we're doing this with our kids that one of those dots, get you bigger, right, is 1. But when we're moving over into those double dots, and I am hoping that you are seeing what I am showing you on that 6, those are your 2, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here, I want to be able to give my kids some manipulatives. So I'm saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What number did we say? We said 5. Where's our number 5? And I believe that I have a 5 right here. That's our number 5. So what's our answer? 2 plus 3 equals 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How you set that up so that you have your manipulatives at hand, which clearly when we do this again, I need a little pot on the side to have some real good manipulatives there to use as well. It might be that as I'm doing this, I am taking some beans and actually gluing the beans over, or maybe they're taped up here with some good double-sided tape, and I can just move my beans over for my young children to see what's going on. Ideally, they're going to have some kind of manipulative in front of them while you're doing that. I understand that requires a parent engaged to do that, and we don't always have that option. And so it might be that we want to send home some of these kinds of manipulatives to our students if we have them in our classroom, if we were able to get them out. I know some of you can go back in and grab things and others cannot. It may be that we need to send our kids a bag of beans. And I spoke to a teacher the other day, and she was going each day, and this is just amazing. Each day she was going to a different house and standing outside of the window and reading a literature connection book, something like What If I Was a Plus Sign? And she was dropping off some really inexpensive things, manipulatives at the door, like beans, a little Ziploc baggie of about 20. So everybody's got their own challenges and successes.
Randy, thank you. Everybody, we're coming to the end of this, so I'm going to share my screen one last time. As we say thank you to everybody, because almost everybody stayed with this. And so if you have more questions, you can always send them in. We'll get them answered at professionallearning@touchmath.com. If you had questions about some of the products, there's the email and the phone number for sales@touchmath.com and the phone number. But we're here to answer questions about how we infuse social emotional learning, any trainings we've got, the products, whatever we can do, the free resources, what we can do to support everybody as we're moving through this, this massive change that we're going through. So thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to talking with everybody in the future. Thank you.